I'm not sure I'm allowed to talk about this, so I'll just say I have an Android 15 based non-Pixel phone that is not good. It's not good.
Mhm.
It's clear that the company just rushed it. It is buggy. It is ugly. It's just not a good piece of software.
Okay, Jules, bleep or cut this. I need to know what it is.
Hello and welcome to the Android Police Podcast. My name is Daniel Bader.
I'm Will Sattelberg.
You got to do better.
Okay, so here's the thing. It's always me waiting to
I'm
see
going to
if
do
you're
it every
going to
week now. I
keep
promise.
talking or if you're going to wait for me to, but it's different every week. So it's me, there's always, I have to leave a beat and then I can be like, okay, I know what Daniel's doing.
So it's my fault.
Yeah, as usual.
I'm inconsistent. That's the problem. I agree. I'm not a reliable narrator. That's the thing. I've been reading a lot of books lately with unreliable
Yeah.
narrators, and I
Yeah.
love it. I love those books. So
Yeah,
I am
absolutely.
channeling that energy in my life.
Yeah, so to the listener out there, you can't trust a thing Daniel says in this episode.
No,
You got to question all of his
I'm a
motives.
decent if soulless podcaster.
Oh my god. Anyway,
But we're very glad to have you. Not you, Will, but you, the listeners. You
yeah,
as well, Will. But until you improve your intro, I'm not gonna
yeah.
I'm not gonna give
My
you too
intro
much
and
slack.
my being on time to this podcast record.
No, that's fine. I'm so the inside baseball for this week is I have been using Apple's continuity camera feature to record my podcast for the last few months. It typically works very well and reliably. The feature, if you're not sure what it is, it uses an iPhone to wirelessly stream video to your Mac. It basically allows you to use your iPhone as a webcam. And it's amazing when it works. But recently, since the update to iOS 18, my iPhone has been failing hard. So
Yeah.
this was the third time that we tried this. Luckily, I have just like a box of old iPhones behind me that I can pull from if I need to. So this was a backup iPhone that is currently working.
Is that
Okay,
what you did? You didn't even tell me what you did.
I
I love
changed
that.
iPhones. Yeah, I had a second iPhone waiting in the wings. This one is actually on beta software. It's running iOS 18.2. So we'll
There we
see.
go.
Maybe it will not work at all, or it'll just invert my camera or colors or whatever at some point.
Who
Anyway,
knows?
we have less than an hour to go through quite a lot of stuff. So let's jump in. We'll start with Android this week because we actually do have listeners who pay attention to the order in which we talk about things. And they
Ugh.
send me emails being like, "You're an Android show and you're talking about Android for 20 minutes at the end of the show, and you spend the first hour talking about one of Lost or Apple or ChatGPT or Twitter." And I'm like,
I don't
"Right,
see
right. I don't
what
see
the
a problem
problem
with
is
this, but
there.
maybe let's give the audience what they want for a change." So this
Yeah.
week, Google announced that it would be releasing Android 16 earlier than typical Android releases. And that's not a surprise because the
Yeah.
cadence of things in the Google hardware world is changing. And I think the software cadence is catching up. But more importantly, Google, I think, has realized that these big annual platform updates are not serving the actual community of Android users and in particular developers very well
Yeah.
anymore. One big set of API and SDK updates a year, it doesn't really jive with the way that people use their Android phones. A lot of people are not buying new Android phones more than once every 3 or 4 years. But conversely, newer products are getting promises of 5, 6, 7 years of platform updates. So Google, I think, with particularly with Android 15, has been in this weird position of releasing a quote big platform update that had absolutely no big updates in it
Right.
from a user perspective. And the updates that were significant were largely on the developer side, and the developers need a lot longer to integrate those improvements to their apps than we as end users realize. So next year, Google will release two Android 16 updates. They'll release one in Q2, so between April and June, and then one in Q4, a smaller one in Q4, probably a dot update in Q4, which would be October through December. This is, I think, meant A, to better align with the new hardware release for the Pixels, which will almost certainly be released in August again, but also just to kind of give developers more time in the year to deal maybe with a smaller number of API changes, but also allow Google to be a little bit more focused and direct in what they announce.
We've talked a lot about, do Android version updates matter anymore, right? Like the majority of the changes that are going to impact you as an end user, not as a developer or anything, are coming to you through the Play Store, Play Service updates, or through your OEM's customizations, whether that's Google, whether that's Samsung, OnePlus, whoever. This is kind of Google recognizing that, like, Android 15, now Android 16, those are more for the devs than ever, right? Like, as you say, like, developers need time to implement those API changes into their apps. By shipping, let's say, Android 16, because we don't know exactly the version numbers, but let's say Android 16 in June, right? Let's say they do a final beta at I/O and then they ship the final version in June. They're prepped and ready for the Pixel 10 to launch in August, probably, running Android 16 out of the box, right? So they don't have this weird thing where it's launching on technically an old version and they have to like backport some of the features, as we saw with like the Pixel 9 Pro Fold. And then once October rolls around, they can essentially do what they just did, which is launch another version of API changes that doesn't have to have the pressure of, this is a big new radically different Android thing. It's more about the backend than ever, and the changes that you care about will either come through quarterly updates or Play Service updates, or, if you're a Pixel user, it'll come with the Pixel 10 announcement, right? Like those changes will be specific to the Pixel 10, maybe come to older hardware over time. That's kind of what I think Google is doing. I think they're acknowledging that Android updates are not what they were 5, 6, 7 years ago.
Yeah. So explicitly, Google is saying this. We're planning the major release for Q2 rather than Q3 to better align with the schedule of device launches across our
Exactly.
ecosystem so more devices can get the major release of Android sooner. What we're seeing right now is this mad scramble for companies like Oppo, OnePlus, and Vivo, and Xiaomi, like the big players in China Android world, to launch their
Yeah.
phones with Android 15. Then we have like the elephant, the Samsung elephant in the room, which is
Yeah.
One UI 7. And as always, Samsung is taking a more conservative approach to its new platform release. And this year, they're actually delaying, or they have delayed One UI 7 Android 15 to early next year, likely to
Yeah.
coincide with the Galaxy S25 series release.
Right.
And there's always a beta that you can use on some devices in the later half of the year. But I bet you this is a conversation that Samsung has had with Google, being like, you're both a competitor and a partner. You have this privileged position of releasing Android into AOSP whenever you want. But even Google had to delay the public release, not delay necessarily, but couldn't align the public release of Android 15 with its new hardware. And this feels like a fairly minor update. So if Samsung is having an issue getting Android 15 on its existing devices before the end of the year, even though this was released to AOSP in August, then we know that there's sort of a misalignment in strategy. And Google, I think, is understanding of this. They're like, look, regardless of what Android 15 looks like on paper, if you go to the developer support pages, there are dozens of API
Yeah.
updates that really do impact the way apps work and the way that Samsung and other OEMs have to build Android 15 for its user base. And it's interesting too, because as minor as Android 15 looks on a Pixel as an update to Android 14, it appears through leaks, and many of those happened this week. Then we can talk about that next. One UI 7 actually looks like a pretty big visual change for
Yeah.
Samsung users. Controversially, but it does look like a big change. So I don't know. I mean, this feels like the natural path that Google has to take because platform updates, A, are not as big as they used to be on an annual basis, and B, companies are trying to release their devices earlier in the year to better
Yeah.
compete with Apple. So that I think is a win-win for everybody. Like, I'll be honest, I'm not sure I'm allowed to talk about this, so I'll just say I have an Android 15 based non-Pixel phone in my lab that is not good. It's not good.
Mhm. Mhm.
It's clear that the company just rushed it. It is buggy. It is ugly. It's just not a good piece of software.
Okay, okay. Jules, bleep or cut this. I need to know what it is. Daniel, what is it?
It's
Okay.
so it's
Yep. Yep.
basically,
Okay.
but so it's like a slightly, and it's terrible. Like it's barely usable,
Yeah.
and it's also the first Android 15 public release that I've used on a non-Pixel phone.
Yeah.
It's terrible, dude. Like, not usable bad. I'm getting the today, which seems like it's a slightly better release. This is a weird thing too. We've seen iOS design clone creep over the years from all
Yeah.
Android manufacturers. But this
It's
appears to be the
bad.
year that everybody is
Yeah.
just
Everyone.
accepting and acknowledging that they are going to make their version of Android look exactly like iOS. From OnePlus to Oppo to Vivo, which has always looked like FunTouch has
Yeah.
always looked like iOS, but
Yeah.
OnePlus and Oppo together have Color OS and Oxygen OS, which are basically the same now.
Yeah.
And then like their
Motorola added that quick settings menu in Android 14 that like is an optional one but looks exactly like
yeah,
it, that's what they're all doing now. It looks exactly like how it does in iOS.
yeah.
To Samsung,
And to
right?
Samsung,
Like
particularly. Like, let's talk about some of these leaks.
just looking at the icons, it's not like they're one-to-one copies, but it's like the way the gradients work, the way I don't know. There's something about it that just like feels like we're going back to like 2012. Am I crazy? Does it feel like Samsung has like spent like the better part of a decade trying to veer away from the reputation that they garnered early on in the Galaxy lifespan and are now just like, you know what, screw it. Like let's just lean super hard into like how much can we just make this look like iOS? Am I
Yes.
is that just a feeling I have or do you see this too?
No, I absolutely see it too. Now that Samsung and Apple are no longer fighting, I
Yeah.
think it comes from two things, right? Samsung has established, now that Huawei is no longer a threat outside of China, Samsung has basically just established and has no fear about its dominance in the Android space. So it might only have a 20% market share in all smartphone sales, but in the Android space, it's much bigger than that. It's more than 50%. And I also think that at this point, Samsung is not growing its smartphone business anymore. We've seen Samsung sales plateau or shrink. The excitement people have around its products has diminished. We've talked innumerable times on this show about how Samsung is no longer taking big swings.
No, they are
And
rumored to be taking a big swing next year, though, Daniel. Because I just threw this in the show notes. I didn't have it in before, and I apologize to you. But their big swing next year is a Galaxy S25 Slim,
yes,
which is a direct response to a year's worth of rumors that the iPhone 17 series will drop the Plus version of the iPhone for a slim version. I understand that like some Android fans get annoyed when you're like, "Oh, Samsung is just copying Apple," and I think that is a leftover feeling from the early days of Android and of Samsung's mobile success. But like practically every step of the way over the last like 2 years especially, it's been like you look at what Samsung's doing and it's like they are just trying to like follow Apple's lead in almost every way. And when they are not following Apple's lead, you get concepts like Galaxy AI where you're kind of just being like, oh, well, they're just kind of following someone else's lead. It feels like a very directionless company at the moment. And I hate that because they're the most successful Android company, at least, in the US,
Well,
in North America.
I think this is clear in what's happening inside Samsung's culture, right? There
Yes.
was reporting earlier this year that the company's executive team was extremely unhappy with both the product of the Galaxy S24 series and
Yeah.
the latest foldables, not to mention the poor sales associated
Yep.
with them. They had to come in on Saturdays and work 6 days a week in order to figure out how to solve these problems. Galaxy AI absolutely did launch before anything Apple did. And I
True.
am not saying that anybody should emulate how Apple is approaching AI, but I think that
Oh, it's Apple Intelligence is also bad. Do
direction,
not
but I
get me
think like
wrong.
that directionlessness is
Yeah.
pervading all of tech. It's not unique to
Oh, app.
Samsung.
Yes.
But I do think
Yes.
in particular this year, Samsung decided screw it. Let's just lean in to the things that we know sell on the iPhone side, right? So
Yeah.
we have spoken about many times the Galaxy Buds update that look like
Yep.
AirPods. Great
The Watch
products,
Ultra.
great products does not
Yeah.
mean that they have not taken a page out of Apple's playbook. That's just a reality. The Galaxy S24 FE, haven't really spoken about that one on the show. It is an iPhone. It is an iPhone. It looks exactly like an iPhone. Like it is so clearly inspired by the iPhone 16 that it just feels like it's made specifically for people who had a older iPhone who may be on the fence to switch. Maybe. Like
And oh, look, you can save, $200
yeah,
buying this,
right.
or even more if it's on sale. But if you compare it to the iPhone 16 Plus, that's 650 versus 900. Like that is a significant amount of savings.
So
Agreed.
then there's this whole thing about this focus on thinness, right? We over the
Right.
last few years, devices have gotten a little bit thicker. We have, as users, have embraced that larger battery capacity that has come with it.
Yeah.
They're getting a little bit lighter due to improvements and changes in materials, right? Samsung's flagship products now use titanium, which is a little bit lighter than stainless steel or aluminum and has a similar tensile strength or better tensile strength depending on how you process it. But yeah, I think this focus on thinness has always been something Apple has really gone after, and I don't see there being a demand for it on the Android side. I truly don't. But it's not surprising that that might be a way to try to entice people, right? With a really slim and light Galaxy device that may not have the camera specs that a flagship would have, but as a result, the bump might be much slimmer and overall the dimensions will be. And also, people have become used to really thin devices when using foldables. So those engineering and design improvements are likely having an impact on how Samsung does its R&D. Samsung can produce a much thinner phone because its Galaxy Z Fold devices, and particularly the Z Fold 6 Special Edition, are thinner than a typical slab smartphone these days.
I think you and I coming at this and being like, this is just another example of Samsung, like recent Samsung looking to just take ideas from Apple's playbook, is specifically because this rumor is it will be like a model introduced, I believe, later in the year, right? Late next year, yeah. So late 2025, right? If the rumor was, oh, Samsung has used its expertise in building foldables to slim down the entire S25 trio, upcoming S25 trio by 20% or whatever, right? They're so much thinner and as a result they're lighter, right? Because there's just less material. I think you and I would look at that and be like wasn't asking for it, but sure. Okay, right? Like that's fine. I think when you and I come at this and are like, just another example, it's because it's like, oh, we're building a specific model to be sold alongside the regular Trio. And it's like, well, that's just what the Apple rumor is. You guys just did what the Apple rumor is. And it would be one thing if it was a one-off, but it's like this is like the ninth example this year. And I don't know. It's frustrating. It's just really frustrating.
So let's talk about One UI 7 a little bit. It's,
Yeah.
I look at this and I'm like, am I being too hard on it? Is it
No.
not really that influenced by iOS 18 and iOS in general? But I think like with every OEM, not just Samsung, stealing live activities, which is a big part of this, right? The fact that you can have these like permanent live updating widgets on your lock screen, or it- I can't tell if it'll be also at the top of the screen when it's unlocked, like it has on
Yeah.
on the iPhone. Yeah, sorry, pill shaped notification. So yeah, it does look like the dynamic island aping is definitely a thing. I will also say that the phone that I can't talk about has a dynamic island feature with
Yeah.
some apps that is weird. It's weird. But is this a big deal? It depends on how you look at it. Who cares? Great artists steal, blah blah blah. Is it a good piece of software? Is it going to make your life better? Yeah. I mean, I think that's a given, right? Samsung's updates are always thoughtful in how much they add to your ability to do things.
Mm.
I'm just unclear on whether One UI 7 is A, too focused on this visual redesign and adding more useless AI, or if
That's what it's going to be.
things
That's
will be
absolutely.
a little bit more considerate. As usual, I want to give Samsung the benefit of the doubt. I do.
That's fair. I just the trajectory that this company is on leaves me a little less willing to give them the full benefit of the doubt when it seems like this is just another piece of the pattern. I don't know.
Yeah. No, you're right. However, we haven't tried the beta yet. It'll be released later this year. Once we try it, we will absolutely write about it and make our own decisions, or come to our own
I
conclusions.
want everyone to know that my cat Linus is trying so hard to jump into my lap to talk about One UI 7. He has thoughts and opinions on Samsung, but I'm not going to let him because
He's not the only
I don't know. He
Linus that has thoughts and opinions on Samsung.
Who's the other Linus?
The YouTuber.
I'm not familiar.
Oh, okay.
And I want to be very clear. He's not named after the YouTuber. He's, of course, as we all know, named after Matt Damon's character in the Oceans trilogy. Hi, Linus. He just hopped up.
Well, obviously, because everybody knows that Matt Damon's character in the Ocean's trilogy is named Linus.
Yeah, Linus Caldwell. We all know this.
Mhm.
He's also kind of named after Ben Linus on Lost. All right, let's move on.
I love it. Okay, let's also, just while we're talking hardware and new products, let's talk about two other announcements or rumors.
Sure.
First, the OnePlus 13 was announced for China this week. We've known basically everything about this phone for months, but
Yep.
it's been announced. We know that it's coming early next year to North America. We know that it'll be powered by the Snapdragon 8 Elite, and that it'll have a massive 6,000 milliamp hour battery. It'll have
Huge.
improvements to the display, wired charging speeds up to 100 watt wired, 50 watts wireless. It will have an improved LTPO AMOLED panel. It'll have slight improvements to the primary camera sensor. It'll be IP69 rated, which is a thing that every BBK company seems to be adding to its phones this year for some reason. In
Yeah.
case you want to like go deep sea diving with your
No, 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 no.
phone.
Do you know what? Do you know what? Do you know what it is? Because I wrote the announcement yesterday, so I had to verify what it was. It's like pressure, like as in a stream of water hitting the phone, and it's temperature. So essentially, it's you can hold it under like your shower head and not worry about it.
Well, no, I mean pressure is barometric pressure, or is it
No, no, I
physical
have the chart in
force?
the IEC chart. It's protected against high pressure and temperature water jets. And like the icon even has like a shower head in it.
Against high pressure and temperature water jets.
Yeah.
Water projected at high pressure and high temperature against the enclosure from any direction shall not have harmful effects.
See the little shower head icon?
Okay. So
if
it's
that
not about like barometric pressure.
No,
Like you
it's
can
about
take the thing down into the ocean and it
yeah,
won't
it's
like
literally
collapse on
like
itself.
you can text in the shower now.
I see. Okay. Well, you could text in the shower before.
Yeah, but now you don't have to worry about it.
IP68 protects against the effects of continuous immersion in water.
Look,
So,
I listen to podcasts every day when I take my morning shower. So like I've been taking every phone into the bathroom with me forever. But now I don't have to be scared about it. Now, have I ever broken a phone from doing this? No, but the OnePlus 13 definitely won't break.
well, that's good to know. I can't wait until you give us your review from the shower. Actually, you should write your review in the shower. And that way we'll know how good the phone is.
I might do.
That might be something you can film too. Obviously wear
Absolutely
wear
not.
wear
Absolutely
wear
not. Nope.
shorts.
Nope.
But that would be an
Still
interesting
no.
video that we could put on the YouTube channel forever and ever.
Everything's about content, huh?
Just to be clear, Valnet owns all copyrighted material that you publish on the YouTube channel. So like once you publish the video that I'm assigning you, actually I think that constitutes harassment in some form.
A little
So
bit. Does Valnet own my bathroom now? Is that Oh my god. Okay, okay. The OnePlus 13. Here's the thing I'm excited about this. I actually don't mind Oxygen OS even in its current very weird state. I almost kind of like it more than One UI, to be perfectly honest with you. I think it has very similar problems as One UI, but I think it's a little bit easier to work around some of those problems. The thing that has kept me from using OnePlus phones as daily drivers beyond review periods is those curved panels. This is still technically curved. It's a 2.5D display, but it's much flatter. The edges are incredibly flat compared to like the OnePlus 12 with like a fully flat frame around the device. And so I don't know, I'm excited to try it because I could see this being, especially when I'm traveling for work, being like a really good daily driver. I cannot imagine killing this thing in a day. And even if you do, the fact that it has, you know, when it hits the US, it'll have 80-watt fast charging, almost certainly. But even at 80 watts, you'll be able to power this thing up in half an hour. And so yeah, it's going to be a powerful phone. I'm excited to try it when it hits North America.
can I just talk about one thing that's really bothering me about this latest slate of announcements?
Yeah.
So OnePlus and its partner company Oppo and Xiaomi all made phone announcements in the last week, and all of them
Yep.
claimed to support magnetic accessories, MagSafe
Oh yeah.
powered accessories like what's natively available on the iPhone. But
Right.
all of them have the caveat that it's not Qi 2 supported, meaning the magnets are not in the phone. They are in the
Yeah.
case.
Yeah. You have to buy a
You have to
case
buy
for
a
it,
proprietary case,
which you could
which you could
already. There
already
are already nice
freaking do
designs.
to get the benefit of what Apple added to and like HMD added to that one phone that nobody bought
Yes. No, I'm
through
so
Qi 2.
frustrated by it
This is the
because
dumbest shit I've ever
it's
heard.
so dumb.
I have a Pixel 9 with a beautiful leather case on it that has magnets in it that can use all of my MagSafe charging accessories. I Frankensteined my
Oh my god,
if you have the privilege of watching the video, I
it's
Frankensteined a dbrand
disgusting.
skin with
I hate it so
a an
much.
ESR MagSafe adapter. This is beautiful,
I
by the way.
continue to think you should go to jail for
This
this.
is actually super practical, I will say. I can put it on vertical stands and it will just charge. It will just stay there. I don't actually think it looks terrible. It looks pretty bad, but not as bad as you think it is. Although to be fair,
That's pretty
you and
fair.
I disagreed on the design of the back of the phone anyway, so I think that phone's
That's
design
true.
is better than you think it is.
Oh my god.
Um
Anyway,
me and Michael still joke about that. But I think the fact that no company can really differentiate itself through hardware anymore is
yeah,
going to be a long-term struggle for smartphone growth going forward. And that it is not surprising that every single company is basically just updating the SoC, making the battery bigger because it's now it's silicon carbon and it's more efficient, and that's it. And there's really no other improvements year over year to most of these products, and
yeah.
they will not make up the difference with AI. And as we've seen with Apple's recent iOS 18.1 launch, even iOS is not immune to this feature creep. this
Can
bloatware.
can I Yeah, I wanna say something about iOS 18 now that we are deep enough into the show that no one can yell at us. I have never been one of those guys that you'll find in the internet being like, "Oh, man, Steve Jobs rolling in his grave right now over what Apple just did." I've never been one of those guys. I'm kind of that about iOS 18.1. I think the amount of incorrect summaries that the notification summary thing generates on your lock screen for you, ranging from just like factually incorrect to hilariously wrong. I think whoever designed it, he would actually throw out of a building, like from like the 16th floor or whatever. I truly think he would hate it. I'm one of those guys now. It's such a helpful idea in theory, although it is helpful primarily to fix iOS's bad notification system. But it is in my testing having the opposite effect where I now anytime it gives me a notification summary, I have to check the full notifications or open, if it's a bunch of messages, I have to open all of the messages, even if I wouldn't have otherwise, to be like, is that actually what is happening? Or is
I got a very
is
funny
it making
summary
things up?
yesterday or 2 days ago because
Yeah,
I'd be getting every single news outlet sends dozens of notifications about the election
right.
right now. And a
Yeah.
lot of them have to
There's
do
an
with
election?
a lot of them have to do with polling. So one of the summaries mistakenly inverted the crux of the summary to say that Kamala Harris had won the election
Oh my
because
god.
it was positing that her chances of winning the election are like it was just using polling data. And I'm like, I don't know how many people got this bad summary or if it's unique to my phone, but
Right.
these are not like
No,
there's
they're
a
bad.
safety, not a safety. I mean, people are going to expand the notification, see that it wasn't that. But like this is something that is impacting millions of users and they're not all going to be like consequential. Most of them will not. But I
Right.
think there's just a weird thing and like this week ChatGPT launched a search product. The first thing I did, as I always do, which is like my baseline request for all AI powered searches, is I search for best Android phone. I just want to see what it says. So it came up with the Pixel 9 Pro, it came up
Mhm.
with the Galaxy S24 Ultra, and it came up with the Pixel 8a, and it came up
Yeah.
with the Galaxy Z Fold 5. And the source of the Z Fold 5 was PC Mag. And it gives you all the sources.
I just did this, got the exact same thing. I got Z Fold 5 from PC
Right.
Mag.
So I followed the source, which was an
Yep.
article that was updated October 1st or 2nd, which does not have the Z Fold 5 anywhere in the article. In fact, they have clearly changed the 5 to the 6. And
Yes.
I said to ChatGPT, the Z Fold 5 is old and no longer recommended. And it redid the search results with the Z Fold 6 from the same source,
Cool.
right?
Great.
This is
Yeah.
the easiest possible search that an AI can put together. All you're doing is aggregating results from links. That's all you're doing. And you can't even pull the right information. You have access to the internet now. So unless Ziff has some sort of robot.txt that blocks their
But it's in other like it's also the source for like my S24 Ultra recommendation here and the 8A recommendation. So it is crawling these pages.
right.
I don't know.
But it's just interesting, right? Like this is a search product that is explicitly partnering with publishers and also taking information from elsewhere on the internet where it's not blocked from doing so. And as we've seen from Anthropic and other companies, some of them are not respecting those crawler blocks in general. So we have many situations where publishers are being like, you're straight up stealing our stuff. But anyway, let's just talk about the search GPT or the search within chat GPT or whatever you're calling it. This is the same week or just a week after that Google rolled out AI overviews to 120 countries, including Canada. So now I have access to this product. It's better. It's still not great, but it's better than it was. And I find it really strange that the product that ChatGPT or OpenAI is creating is essentially the same thing as Google search. It's just coming at it from a different perspective, but it's Google search. That's weird. That's weird. It's just a weird reality that like all this money being raised and all of this hype that has been exploded into the atmosphere is creating a product that is essentially giving us a slightly more verbose answer with a bunch of blue links that are sometimes wrong. And it's the same shit that we've been complaining about AI overviews for a year now.
All of these companies and Ed Zitron of all people has like spilled a million words on this. So like read his newsletter. But like all of it's just reinventing things that already exist to continue trying to show growth. And it is quite possible that like we hit peak search in 2018 or whatever, and it's just been a downhill ride since. And it's just going to keep being like, well, what if we did it this way? And so it's, as you say, it's like it's more human, but it's also wrong more often. And it's like I'd rather it just be a bunch of links that are not wrong. Like I don't know. Like it's the web is in such a bad state right now. I mean, it's just such a bummer.
Well, also, I want people to click on my links. And when I look at this,
Well,
we've talked. I mean, we
yeah,
talked about this again with like with AI overviews. The websites that OpenAI is preferencing are not Android sites, right? Like Google made a
no,
big deal in
it's
its last core update of preferencing and prioritizing the visibility of niche sites again because it leaned too hard
wiped
in
them
the other
out.
direction in its March
Yeah,
update. And yet there's no Android police, Android Central, Android Authority, whatever. Like there's
yeah,
Tom's Guide, not to malign any of these excellent sites, but we are the niche, right?
yeah,
We
absolutely.
are the niche. We put in the time, we put in the work. Every single buyer's guide that we publish having to do with Android phones goes through your I mean, it's that's probably what it is. It's going through your hands. So, okay, I
Oh
take it all
God.
back. But like in
All right.
theory, this should be, pulling our stuff, right? So
Is this where I publicly quit the show in the middle of the episode?
no, but I mean that's it, right? Like I find the whole thing bizarre. It's basically Google search with AI overviews. There's no
Yes.
reason to think this won't evolve over time and all that good stuff. But
Sure.
like let's be real here. Like you're raising hundreds of billions of dollars, or you're valued at $470 billion, raising $6 billion to essentially create a product that Google has owned for 20 years now. And like that's not scary to Google. And to be fair, Bing had the same, like it wasn't as good a year ago, but like Bing search had OpenAI integration in it from day one. It hasn't moved the needle. Google's still at 90% market share. It's not quaking in its boots. It's going to get sued into oblivion, and it's going to lose, but like it's not going anywhere.
No.
Okay, so that's search
We've got 15
GPT.
minutes.
I just want to go through a few other small things.
I was gonna say let's each pick like one story
Okay.
from this, and
Okay.
we can. So you go first.
I just want to talk about the Pixel 9a. I don't think this is a big deal in terms of like hardware, but I do
Yeah.
think it's this product is like the dark horse. Not is that a good thing? Is the dark horse like sexy or is it like bad?
Ask Katy Perry.
Okay, let's ask ChatGPT to ask Katy Perry. Um, but anyway, this is like
That
I
song is
think
a
the
decade
secret
old.
like hit that Google is kind of it's so under the radar, but it is the best product Google makes basically. And the 8A was awesome. The 9A is going to be
Yeah.
awesome as well.
Although I'm bummed it's bigger. Can I be honest? Like I'm bummed that they're like, oh, we gave it the like same 6.3-inch panel, presumably from the Pixel 9. Like I assume this is
It's
just.
slightly lighter, but yeah, it'll be a little bit thinner, I think, and but slightly bigger, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I really liked the 6.1-inch display on the 8A, even though it had huge bezels around it. I didn't care. I really liked that it felt small in my hand because I there's already there's two 6.3-inch Pixel 9s right now. 3 if you count the outer display on the Pixel 9 Pro Fold. And so I don't know. I just felt like just do something a little different with the 9A. Make it a little different, but they're just gonna look it's gonna look very similar,
Yeah, it's so
except with
I'm
thicker
comparing the
bezels.
leaked dimensions with the 8A. The 8A is 2 millimeters shorter, about a millimeter thinner, or a millimeter less wide, narrower. That's the word I'm looking for, and identical in terms of thickness. So, yeah, I mean, it'll have to be slightly bigger. It's going to weigh a couple grams less, but I don't know if you remember, but Google released a mid-cycle update to the 8 last year. It was that sage color, I think.
Yes. It was mint.
Was it mint or sage? No, it was sage. It was hazel. Hazel. Was that a day one release or was
I covered the mint Pixel
You're
8.
right. Sorry, the hazel was a day one release and then the mint came later. But anyway, I'd
Yeah.
forgotten that I got the hazel version of it when
Yeah.
I got my review unit because as we always do, I don't know about you, but like I always go to the more powerful, more feature packed review unit first, which was the Pixel 8 Pro. And that was the bright blue one that was very pretty, but I forgot that Google had sent me the Hazel Pixel 8. And this thing is so nice. It's so small. The color's beautiful. I love this phone. So in that sense, I do agree with you that going bigger is not ideal on the 9A, but other than that, like I do think the fact that it'll have a less protruding camera.
I'm excited for that. I don't think that every phone needs to have a camera bump. That is where I'm at on camera bumps. Is that if I truly think that some of these sensors could fit into 9 millimeter chassis. Like they're not that big of sensors. I think a lot of companies are putting camera bumps on cheaper phones to make them look more premium, basically.
Yeah, agreed. So that's the 9A. Not a huge update, but I'm excited to see it. It'll be released most likely in March next year, which is again sooner than most A series products have been released in the past. But Google is moving things up now. Okay, what's yours?
I want to talk about Nintendo Music.
Yeah, I knew you would want to talk about that. That's why I didn't
Yeah.
pick it. Okay, what about how do you feel about this basically YouTube Music ripoff as a
That
standalone
is
app?
why I want to talk about it. I cannot get over that the UI is just YouTube Music. I was talking I was talking to Ben Schoen at 9 to 5 about it, because he that's the angle that he used to write about it. And I joked. I was like, well, no one's gonna notice because no one uses YouTube Music, so it's fine. And I know I'm sure our entire listener base uses YouTube Music, so please don't yell at me. I was making a joke. But look, it's great. I listen to music from games and especially Nintendo games all the time when I'm writing. There's lots of mixes on YouTube. Sometimes they get taken down, sometimes they don't. And to have like an official one from Nintendo that is not the sicko mode stuff that they make, like when Smash Brothers came out and they were like, you can listen to it on your Nintendo Switch on the go. Just throw your Switch in the bag and use your wired headphones, because in 2018 the Switch did not include or did not support Bluetooth earbuds, of course. This makes a lot more sense for that. I believe it is free with a Switch Online membership. So if you have a Switch Online membership, you can go listen to tracks from a bunch of different games. I assume they will add. I believe they said they're going to add more as it goes. But also, I just feel like this could have they could just do what every other gaming company does and throw this in Spotify
No,
or
but
Apple
they
Music or
couldn't.
YouTube
And
Music.
here's the thing, right? And I've been thinking about this because the New York Times put all of its podcasts behind a paywall in the last few weeks. And I've been wanting to talk to you about this. Maybe next week we can talk a little bit more about like audio
Sure.
in general because I think that's having a moment. Like Tidal just laid off a whole bunch of people. There's shifting sands in the audio space that I think is worth bringing up, and I think Nintendo Music is a really good example of that, where Nintendo could not put this behind a paywall within Spotify or Apple Music,
No,
right?
true.
There are
A
no
100%.
sub paywalls. You can't in-app purchase your way to accessing a portion of a publisher's product library within an
Correct.
existing streaming service. So
Yes.
what the New York Times did with its podcast is that it basically just put it behind a paywall where it's supported, which is Apple Podcasts and Spotify, right?
Right.
And I find that fascinating, right? This idea of an open podcast ecosystem is disappearing because the Pocket Casts, which is ironically owned by the New York Times company now, but like the Pocket Casts and Overcasts of the world are not
Yeah.
technically able to charge you access. And the way that it's been done in the past is that if you have a Patreon or something, you can provide
Right.
like a private link to
Private link.
your feed. And then I guess the owner can individually authorize those feeds if they don't want that one private feed to get, it's like, it's not like an unlisted link on for a YouTube video, but it's like an individual link for you. But then how would
Oh
they
yeah, some of
enforce
my
it?
RSS feeds have like my name in them
Right,
from Patreon or whatever.
right.
Yeah.
But like if I'm just loading a link, a private link into Pocket Cast, like how do they authenticate me? Right?
They don't they just
They
you're
can't.
given the link and you can take it where you want. Yeah.
Right? But
Exactly.
like I could then share that link with 8 people, and I guess the creator
Absolutely.
may
I don't
be like,
see.
"Oh, this is being used multiple times. I'm just going to ban the link." Right?
Yeah.
But there's no easy way to do it outside of an existing payment structure that Apple Podcasts is best suited to support, because Apple allows you to subscribe to individual channels. And Nintendo is, as we know, the most litigious company in the world, and would never allow its IP to just get freely used as part of a 9.90. Now it's 11.99
No,
spot
100%.
Spotify
Yeah.
subscription, but I suspect that it did not want to build its own app.
No,
my suspicion, right? Like Nintendo
I
doesn't
agree.
want to create a whole bunch of maintenance costs around its own app. I think it would have preferred to put this in Spotify and Apple Music, but it couldn't.
Yeah.
And I think that's weird, because I'm sure Spotify and Apple would have loved to take 30% of every sub subscription, but would they have allowed Nintendo to authenticate an existing Nintendo Online subscriber through the app without taking a cut of that existing subscription? Probably not. And I think that is the main
No.
issue.
I have lots of thoughts on this. I think so obviously when I said it should just be in Spotify, like I do not expect Nintendo to I never would have expected Nintendo to do that. My point is more that like I don't think this app that require like no one is signing up for a Nintendo Switch Online membership because of this app. No one has been on the fence for 6 years and is finally like, yes, this finally what I've been waiting for. Move over in 64 games. I want the Nintendo Music app. At the same time, like what you're proposing, I'm almost happy that doesn't exist because like if platforms like Spotify started adding the ability to be like, oh well, okay, you can't listen to this album because you have not authenticated your payment with this company or whatever. I feel like that breaks music streaming. I feel like that leads to like the next Kendrick Lamar album is actually like you have to like sign up for like I don't know. I don't remember what label he's on. I know he left Top Dog, so I don't. But you know, you have to
But there's
sign
only
up
three
for specific
companies. It's like
labels.
Sony, Warner,
Well,
and
yes,
Universal. And
or whatever. But you have to sign up through one of those three to be like, oh, I wanna have access to the Sony Music
but
Library,
that's what
and
I'm
like so
saying.
it's
Like,
probably
is
it's
there a
good that that
world
doesn't happen.
is there a world in the future where Spotify
I'm
is
sure they
selling
want it to be
channels to rare
probably
discographies that are ostensibly worth more? You know, when Bruce Springsteen and Bob Dylan and Pink Floyd are selling access to, or they're selling their entire catalogs to these record labels for hundreds of millions of dollars, you
yeah
you see the writing on the wall that like, hey, do you want access to all of Pink Floyd's albums and their unreleased demos and all of their behind the scenes stuff and videos and commentary and everything? You know, maybe we'll give you access to their like top 5 albums through your regular Spotify subscription. But if you want the good stuff, here's the Pink Floyd subscription, right? And here's the Led
right
Zeppelin subscription. Here's the Kendrick Lamar subscription. And like, I don't know. I think that's actually quite attractive to a company like Spotify, because then it gets to create all these microtransactions on its way to try to compete with Apple and Amazon, who consider their music catalogs just to be a small side hustle of their much
yeah
larger businesses. And aside from that, when you look at Nintendo creating this app, this is 100% what Amazon's doing with Prime, or what Sony is doing with PlayStation Plus, right? It's giving you more value, or I think this is closer to what Netflix is doing with its gaming catalog, but like it's giving you slightly more value out of your existing subscription. so that you're feeling like you're not overspending your twenty nine
Well,
ninety
yeah,
nine
and
a year.
when they raise the price, they can be like, "Well, don't worry about it. Look at all the value you have," you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if you saw this. I mean, it wasn't viral, but it had some traction on Threads the other day, where a guy subscribed to PlayStation Plus until 2048 at the existing prices, because
Yeah.
he was like, they're going to increase prices for like
Why
every
not?
3-4 years, because
Just put it in now.
they've been doing it right. It went from $50 7 years ago to
Yeah.
$80 now, and if the
Right.
trajectory and trend continues, by 2048, it's going to be like $800 a year, which seems
Right.
hilarious, but may not be. So the guy locked in his price for the next 24
20
years.
years, 25 years, yeah.
And I think that's incredible, because Sony allows you to do that. Probably not on purpose, but by bundling all these. Anyway, I just find the whole thing hilarious. But yeah, next week we'll talk more about the audio space,
Yeah,
because I find it
let's do that.
fascinating. And also because I've been listening to an album that is not available on streaming at all, and it's
Okay.
one of the best albums that I've heard in a very
Is this
long
your
time.
is this your what's making you happy?
It is, yes. So this album. It's called Diamond Jubilee by Cindy Lee. It's great.
Okay.
It's a really good album. It's by a Canadian band slash singer songwriter. Excellent stuff, but it's only available on YouTube and a GeoCities page, which is
Oh, I
incredible.
have heard of this. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Because I think I heard about it through the Pitchfork
Yeah,
list that
exactly.
it was
So
on.
it
Yeah,
was like
okay.
a
Yeah.
9.3 on Pitchfork. Blah blah blah. I'm cool, but really, this is a great
Well,
album.
sure. Yeah.
And it is what's making me happy. Okay, you go. We have to finish, but what's making you happy this week?
Yeah. I this is not really a thing that most people can probably just like go out and do. But last week I on Friday I sat on the beach in Maui and watched the sunset and proposed to my girlfriend. We are now
What?
engaged. And Daniel did not know
Oh my
this, but this
god.
is actually him finding this out for the first time.
Congratulations.
Thank
Oh my
you.
god, dude. That's so I'm so happy for you.
Yeah.
Maddie,
No,
get out while you
it went
can.
well. Oh, all right. Yeah, no, it was she had no idea. I actually have a very funny my our mutual friend, the friend that like introduced us to each other, sent me a screenshot from May, because her wedding is tomorrow as we record this, and it was Maddie being like, because Maddie's a bridesmaid, you don't care if I go to Hawaii, the last week of October or whatever. I know it's right before the wedding. And the friend being like, no, 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 that's fine. Also, would be a good place for him to propose. Not too close to the wedding, to my wedding, for him to propose. Just saying. And Maddie responded like, oh, he's not going to propose. So, yeah. Anyway, I did it.
Oh, I'm so
And I'm
happy
very
for you,
happy.
dude. You're
Yeah.
you're so I cannot wait to be in your wedding party. Or be the MC. I mean, either one will be fine. I'm very good at being the officiant or
Absolutely.
MC. I can talk for a
Yeah.
long time, as you know.
There we go.
And I'm cheap. You can pay me in Canadian dollars too. So
The exchange rate really works out well for me.
yeah, it does.
Yeah.
Well, congratulations. I will send you many nice things over Slack, but I have to run.
Yes. No, we're wrapping up now. You are already a minute over. So, yeah.
Oh man, I love you, dude. That's great. So happy
Thanks,
for you
buddy.
and Maddie.
Thank you.
All right, thank you for listening. This has been one of the best shows ever since now. Now we know Will is getting hitched.
Yeah.
And I'm officially his best man, officiant, and
That's
MC all in one.
All at the same
All
time.
at the same time. All right, that's the show. Send email to podcast@androidpolice.com. Send Will your congratulations wherever he is on the internet.
Yeah.
And we will talk to you next week. Bye-bye.
Bye.